Welcome to Anews. I'm Umar Taslim, and you're watching Turkey's Diplomacy. The United Kingdom is facing severe backlash for banning a prominent pro-Palestine group under terrorism laws after protests at Glastonbury fueled a nationwide debate on free speech. Today, we'll assess the latest push for a ceasefire in Gaza, Trump's high-stakes meeting with Netanyahu, and whether BRICS can truly challenge Western-led global governance. Plus, we'll examine China's growing role in the Middle East and its blunt warning to Europe over the Ukraine war. Joining me on today's program are strategic affairs expert Dr. Hamid Khan Al-Mashriqi and Marvin Lee from the GeoShock think tank based in Hong Kong.
U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday. At the start of the meeting, the leaders indicated progress on a controversial effort to relocate Palestinians out of Gaza.
You know, if people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future.
And we've had great cooperation from surrounding Israel, surrounding countries, great cooperation from every single one of them. So something good will happen.
Trump floated relocating Palestinians and taking over the Gaza Strip earlier this year. Gazans broadly criticized the proposal and vowed never to leave their homes in the coastal enclave. Human rights groups condemned the plan as ethnic cleansing. Netanyahu's visit to the White House comes just over 2 weeks after the president ordered the bombing of Iranian nuclear sites in support of Israeli airstrikes. Trump then helped arrange a ceasefire in the 12-day Israel-Iran war. Trump said his administration would be meeting with Iran and that he would like to lift sanctions on Iran at some point.
I would love to be able to, at the right time, take those sanctions off, give them a chance at rebuilding.
Iran's president said in an interview released on Monday that he believed Iran could resolve its differences with the United States through dialogue. Trump and his aides appear to be trying to seize on any momentum created by the weakening of Iran, which backs Hamas, to push both sides for a breakthrough in the 21-month Gaza war. And while Trump and Netanyahu met in Washington, Israeli officials held indirect negotiations with Hamas in Qatar, aimed at securing a U.S.-brokered Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. In a sign of continued gaps between the two sides, Palestinian sources on the second day of negotiations said that Israel's refusal to allow the free and safe entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza remains the main obstacle to progress in the talks. Prior to Trump and Netanyahu's meeting, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters that Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff will travel to Doha this week to join the discussions.
Also, as you know, there was a ceasefire proposal that Israel supports that was sent to Hamas, and we hope...
Welcome back to the program. Joining us now from Hong Kong is Marvin Lee. He's a geopolitics analyst at the GeoShock think tank in Hong Kong. Marvin, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Marvin, we've been talking about the BRICS summit for the past few days, and we've seen how the summit has unfolded in Brazil. The first thing that I want to ask you is, could this summit, could BRICS as an organization replace other international organizations? How impactful has BRICS been in combining all countries, the new countries and the ones that were there before as well? How important is this organization, Marvin?
Okay, before giving my analysis and explanation about this, let me give you a data. So in 2023, 2 years ago, the GDP of BRICS country have already exceeded the G7 nations, which means that they are fast growing among the global south. So from the Chinese perspective and view, the BRICS group like major Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa represents a response to the imbalanced power structures of Western-led institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and WTO, and G7, G20, etc., which China believes to reflect the outdated post-World War II realities or post-Cold War realities. And in the Chinese world, we believe in Confucianism, emphasize that the harmony without uniformity, meaning diverse nations can cooperate despite their differences. That this principle guides China's promotion of BRICS as a more inclusive platform. And let me give you some data to prove my explanation. So like the NNB, New Development Bank, founded in 2015 and headquartered in Shanghai, has approved over 33 billion in loans as of 2023, financing clean energy, infrastructures, and public health projects in BRICS countries. So in August 2023, BRICS expand to include Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Argentina, representing a combined GDP of over 28 trillion PPP, which is more than G7 total GDP on a PPP basis, which means that the Chinese Foreign Ministry has repeatedly stated that BRICS BRICS countries expand helps correct historical injustice in global governance and give the Global South a voice. So China support using local currencies or digitalized currency in BRICS trade to reduce dependency on the US dollars, part of a broader push for de-dollarization. But this is a very far, a long-term approach.
Marvin, you just mentioned about using a common currency. Do you think that this is a feasible idea and all countries in the BRICS alliance will agree to this? Do you think that this is feasible given the importance of the US dollar at this point?
In the short term, I don't think so, because I can, based on my own observation, BRICS countries have their own national agenda. For example, Brazil, even some countries in the Middle East, they have to rely on the US dollars at this point. And US dollars cannot be ignored because the American influence, and everyone needs to trade with the American market. So even the Chinese market itself, they need a certain amount of US dollars just to support their own trade and the foreign reserve and etc. But in the long term, they are doing bit by bit just to alleviate the long-term negative impact posed by the USA. So we can see that the ongoing war in Russia and Ukraine has given an example for all these countries in the Global South to find an alternative approach, not just using the USD.
Marvin, I want to go back to what the Chinese premier said at BRICS. And I quote, he said, BRICS is a vanguard of global governance reform. Now, how realistic is this? Do you think that this is actually the case? And how important is China's presence in BRICS? And how important is China leading all of the other countries? We know there have been some issues which we are going to talk about later. But firstly, what do you make of the Chinese premier's statements?
Okay, so this is a very good question. So from the Chinese civilization and our Chinese perspective, vanguard also means we are the cradle of civilization. We are the leader to create some new inventions during these past 1,000, 2,000 years. And we have lots of moral standard, philosophy, etc. So in our Chinese context, it means leading not only by economic size, but by moral examples, which the United States has not fully fulfilled. So you can see that USA has been leading all countries by economic size, but sometimes their moral standards can be questioned critically. So echoing the Confucian concept of virtuous leadership that inspire rather than coerce or physical power or hard power or sharp power in the context of international relations. So China views the current global governance system as unfit for the new realities of the 21st century, one where emerging economies are increasingly central. And let me give you data as well. Back in 2022, China overtook the EU as a top trading partner of the entire Africa and became the largest trading partner of more than 120 countries. For example, Turkey, Egypt, and even some countries in Middle East as well. And the BRICS contingent reserve arrangement, we call it CRA, with a capital pool of 100 billion USD, is seen as a potential alternative to an IMF emergency lending mechanism. But this can be a very critical point in the academia, because IMF has been doing lots of positive impact to the rest of the world, but sometimes, from my perspective, this can be questioned at the same time. And back to NNB has, I've mentioned before, the NDB, has issued bonds in local currencies. So, for example, the Chinese yen and the South African rand, the local currency, reducing reliance on the dollar system. So back to my point, this is a very big challenge here. The BRICS countries differ in ideology. For example, even Russia and China, they are very close friends, but they have different ideologies in the blood. For example, China and India, so they have a different approach to politics, to international relations, and their own national agenda. But China's long-term philosophy favors to have a gradual improvement rather than just do it all at once. The goal is not to overthrow the existing system immediately, but to reshape its form within by creating parallel mechanisms bit by bit. And this is a long-term game from the Chinese perspective.
Marvin, you've said that, all these countries in the BRICS alliance have different ideologies. India has a different ideology, South Africa, Russia, and China, of course, has a different ideology. Now, there are some tensions as well, especially between India and China, and especially how we saw in the last few weeks and months how India and China have been trading, they have been trading arguments, they have been trading blows with one another. And we've seen in the past as well how India and China have had border clashes. Now, when they're part of the same organization, how do you, analyze this? What do you think about this? Do you think that this is going to cause further problems, or this is an alliance which is there to solve their problems?
First of all, from the Chinese perspective and our history, which is the century of humiliation in the past century. So the Chinese people has learned a lot from the history and has no illusion or imagination about the rest of the world. So we don't believe that this country or that country is our friends or allies, just like the Western world. So we can only rely on ourselves just to make ourselves as a powerful yet peaceful countries to protect our national interests. And unlike the EU, the NATO, they have similar ideology, similar political approach. The BRICS country, even the BRI initiative, China need to balance different national agenda, different political and socio-political expectations. Just like, as you have mentioned before, even there's some military clash between China and India, and China has never relinquished any kind of platform to have a communication with other countries. Because in the Chinese perspective, it's rather to have one more allies or friends more than an enemy. So this is the Chinese approach to think about the world.
Marvin, what I wanted to ask you next is about China's 2011 white paper. And from this white paper, we can determine many things. I want to especially talk about how China and Russia did not say much when it came to Iran being attacked by the United States and by Israel. Now, when you look at the 2011 white paper, you can see that there are some core ideas, which are state sovereignty, national security, national reunification, there is territorial integrity. There are many things that make up this 2011 white paper. But now what I want to ask you right now is, when the United States and Israel attacked Iran, China made some statements, Russia also made some statements, but they were not heavily involved. Why are China and Russia not so actively involved in these conflicts, even though they have released statements? But why are they keeping distance between, these issues?
This is a very, very interesting question. So first of all, let's think from the Chinese perspective. So we are competing with the Americans, and we are having an ongoing trade war, a tariff war with USA, and even we have lots of political tensions against the Western world. But like in the 10 years later, 20 years later, we will become the major power, number one power in this planet. So why should we deal with the matters that is very far away from us? And then this is how we think about the world. So we just work hard, keep grinding, and don't do too much in the Middle East, and then we still will become top number one. So however, if we deal with the situation in Iran, those complicated matters relate with religious matter, political matters, and this the Chinese perspective we may have lots of complicated matters that need to be solved out, that we are not unfamiliar with. And second, our military is not as strong as the US naval power. So how can we really protect Iran? So if we do this, if we protect Iran, so the rest of the world may question our national agenda. So are we a part of Iran? So that's why the Chinese government has to balance both. And then let me give you some data as well about the trading volume. So we all say that Iran has been selling crude oils to China. But however, if you compare the trade volumes between Iran and China, and Saudi Arabia and China, and even Egypt and China, and even Turkey and China, and they have way more trade volume than the relationship between Iran and China. So that's why from the Chinese perspective, Iran is just like a chess game just to attract the eyeballs from the Western world, from the USA, from Israel. And China at the same time, they can develop their military, the economy quietly.
Marvin, also I was researching in the morning, and I saw that China has now has issued a visa-free policy for all of Europe. We saw some countries which were given the visa-free access to China last year, but now there are many more other countries that have been added. Now, what do you think about that? At one point, the United States is banning immigrants, is banning visitors, it's banning tourists because of the policy on Palestine. But China is opening its borders, facilitating visa-free policies. How important is that for China economically?
This is a very good question indeed. So last year or the last year in 2023 or 2024, China has opened up its border, allow lots of foreigners to visit China as a tourist. Like the so-called 240 hours policy. I need to research the name later, which means that all foreigners can visit China more easily before. And when these people, thousands of foreigners visit China, and they will take lots of videos and upload it on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And why? So this is the major answer here. The Western world has been making lots of propaganda, fake story about China, or portraying China as a poor country. Oh, do all Chinese people eat dog? So I have been questioned about this many times when I study in the UK. So when the Chinese government allow all foreigners to visit China, the experience, the hospitality, even the modern side of China, the development of the Chinese world, even Shenzhen and even Guangzhou. If you go to this place, they even have flying taxis, 5G telecommunication, and high-speed railway system. So do they really have this in the USA? Do they really have this in the UK? Right? Even the metro system in China, they are very clean. I'm not saying this just to protect my home country, but this is a fact. So that's why when a foreigner visits China, they will take all videos and pictures and they'll send it back to their friends. So from the Chinese perspective, just to break all this propaganda one by one. And in the Chinese philosophy and our culture, we welcome all foreigners no matter how far they come from. So we also welcome you all the way from Turkey to visit China as well.
Marvin, also, I agree with you when you say that, China has the best technology in the world. It has the best infrastructure in the world. And, this has always been portrayed in the media as well, that China is backwards. There's no development in China. And, I loved how you said, how you made that analysis while saying that, we're welcoming everyone. We want the world to visit China. Now, Marvin, my last question that I want to ask you is, the Chinese government is focusing heavily on Russia. Now, during a 4-hour meeting in Brussels with EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, the Chinese foreign minister, he said that, the Chinese government or China does not want Russia to lose the war. What are your thoughts on this statement? How are you analyzing what the Chinese government has been doing in this war between Russia and Ukraine?
This is all about geopolitics. This reflects China's realist assessment of power dynamics framed with a legalist philosophy that prioritize state stability, geopolitical balance, and strategic deterrence. And China views Russia not only as a neighbor, but as a buffer zone against the Western encirclement. A Russian defeat, let's imagine, from a Beijing perspective, could weaken Euro-Asian balance of power, strengthen NATO and US Indo-Pacific military alliance like the AUKUS, the Quad system, and even enable Washington to concentrate its containment strategy entirely on China. And let me give you some example to prove my analysis. So despite international pressure, China and Russia trade hit $240 billion in 2023, up 26% from 2022. And China imported a record of 106 million tons of Russian oil, surpassing Saudi Arabia as its top oil supplier, often paid in Chinese yen or some equivalent product. As the mentioned Security Conference in 2023, Wang Yi said China is willing to promote peace talk, but rejects unilateral sanctions that determine global economic stability. So I have been giving you lots of examples and data. So what does it mean for China? So which means that when all the Western world, especially USA and UK, have been providing tremendous military support to Ukraine, they have no extra energy to focus on China from the Pacific Sea, from the South China Sea, because China need to unify Taiwan as their own unfinished business. So that's why to attract all the eyeball in the Western world. And then so China can do that, can achieve their national agenda quietly and without too much distraction from the outside world.
Marvin Lee from the GeoShock think tank in Hong Kong, thank you so much for joining the program. It was a pleasure listening to your analysis.
Thank you.
Now we're going to take a look at this news report about the BRICS summit that is underway in Brazil, and we'll be right back.
Chinese Premier Li Qiang said Sunday that BRICS countries should strive to become the vanguard in advancing the reform of global governance. Li made the remarks when addressing the plenary session of Peace and Security and Reform of Global Governance of the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, calling on the group to safeguard world peace and tranquility, and promote the peaceful settlement of dispute. Leaders of BRICS countries attended the meeting, which was presided by Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Li said at present, changes unseen in a century are unfolding at an accelerated pace, international rules and order are being severely challenged, and the authority and efficacy of multilateral institutions continue to wane. The vision of global governance put forward by Chinese President Xi Jinping, characterized by extensive consultation, joint contribution and shared benefits, has been further demonstrating its contemporary value and practical significance, Li said. As the leading force of the Global South, BRICS countries should uphold independence and self-reliance, demonstrate a sense of responsibility, and play a greater role in building consensus and synergies, Li noted. The meeting adopted the Rio de Janeiro Declaration of the 17th BRICS Summit.
Welcome back to the program. Joining us now from Manchester is strategic affairs expert Dr. Hamid Khan Al-Mashriqi. Dr. Hamid, welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Dr. Hamid, let's talk about the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. There were some important things that were discussed: the Gaza ceasefire, issues in the Middle East, the Abraham Accords, and also a possible ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. What's your analysis, Dr. Hamid?
Omar, definitely it was very important meeting, and it is the third meeting between Trump and Netanyahu since Trump have come into Oval Office. But after Iran-Israel war, this was the first meeting. So it has a lot of significance, and as we have seen that President Trump is very confident that he will be able to achieve a ceasefire between Hamas and Netanyahu or IDF. It seems good news, but at the same time, we have to see on which terms this ceasefire will be achieved. And yes, there is a lot of hope, but on the other hand, we were waiting for any talks about the people of Gaza, about the food crisis, about the role of GHF, the Gaza Health and Food, which is an organization run by Americans, and they are already controversial that they have killed so many people when they come for the food in the queues. So they have not talked about the security. They haven't, and about the people who are trying to get the food and starvation there. But let's see how it unfolds in coming days. It seems that Israel wants to have a ceasefire on their term. But if they have talked about Abraham Accord and other things, it is why did not they talk about the two-state solution, the permanent solution for the issue of Palestine and Israel? And there is no way that they can achieve the peace without solving the issue permanently. And the permanent solution is, as per the Oslo Agreement, as per the other agreements, that there has to be a Palestine state as well, which is a two-state solution, and Tel Aviv as a capital of that. And these are the very important, factors which I think needs to be considered, and we have to see how it will be unfolding in coming days. Then we will see that what will be the reaction from Hamas, and what about the hostages. On the other hand, what about the rehabilitation of the people of Gaza? What about the thousands of people who are in prisons of Israel? And there are a lot of things to be decided yet, but it feels like it is a right step in right direction, but very late. Not too late, but very late.
Dr. Hamid, the difficult part about this ceasefire is that Hamas has some demands, and then Israel has its own demands. And then there's Trump, who has a completely different idea of the Middle East. Now, the latest ceasefire proposal that was given by Trump, it said that Hamas would release 10 living hostages and 18 hostages who have been killed in the occupied Gaza Strip. Do you think that at this point, Hamas will be ready to accept this ceasefire, given the proposals of the ceasefire and how Israel is saying that Hamas will not exist in a post-war Gaza? Do you think that's feasible?
To be honest, let's have the reality check that Israel have already killed a top leadership of Hamas. Secondly, tier leadership is also almost killed. Third tier leadership is at the moment in control of Hamas. Hamas is very badly damaged. So Hamas is in this position to do some kind of compromise. But if they think that they can completely eliminate Hamas and there will be no existence of Hamas, then who will be there for the for the Palestinians? That is the question. And I think there has to be some kind of agreement where there could be any, peacekeeping force there, or any force which will have, but not the IDF. That is for sure that the people of Gaza will not accept that Gaza will be controlled by Israeli forces. It has to be controlled by some neutral force. It could be, there are proposals that where they're talking about some kind of group of Muslim countries force could manage there, including Pakistani and Turkish and other forces can help to bring the peace there. But Hamas at the moment is in a very weak position. That is a reality. But on the other hand, they should should not suppress the Hamas at that level that where they will not accept any agreement and the war can prolong and the suffering of people of Gaza can prolong. So I believe that at this stage, Hamas would like to achieve the peace as much as possible as any other one. And people of Palestine, and especially Gaza people, are looking for peace in any way, in any situation, but they are not willing to leave the piece of land of Gaza.
Dr. Hamid, we've seen it's not just the occupied Gaza Strip, it's the West Bank as well. Now, when the attacks stop in the occupied Gaza Strip, Israel starts attacking Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. And we've seen this over the past few months, how the Israeli cabinet has championed illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. And we've been seeing in the last few days how illegal settlements have been increasing in cities like Ramallah, in cities like Jenin. People are being attacked by Israeli settlers. So what do you think about this situation? Why is Israel doing this? Because Israel also said a few days ago, some cabinet members said that the West Bank should be annexed. And I don't think Netanyahu would reject that idea. What do you think about that?
Look, when we talk about the ideology of Jewish Greater Israel and expansion, then there is a vast majority which supports that settlers' plan to increase, but it is against the human rights. It's against the United Nations Charter. It is against the indigenous right of people of Palestine who are the indigenous to the land. That is the reality. But on the other hand, we have seen the highest violation by the settlers in last 2 months, for the last 3 decades is there. So this is very critical situation that they are trying to annex, or they're trying to fully control the West Bank, because they believe that, they have seen there was no much resistance from the West Bank. And if the West Bank is annexed, then hardly any Palestine left. Then the Gaza Strip is only 40 kilometers and 2 kilometers wide. It's hardly any piece of land. So I don't think so that the world will accept any annexation of West Bank. And when I talk about the two-state solution, the two-state solution means a good, sizable, piece of land for the people of Palestine, which will include the parts of actually complete West Bank and Gaza Strip and Jerusalem, and as a joint capital for both countries, Israel and Palestine. That is the only solution which will be acceptable for the Palestinians, for the Muslim world, for the Arab world. And that is but we have seen so many proposals from Israeli ministers and cabinets and politicians which are absolutely against the human rights and unacceptable.
Javed, you just said that a two-state solution is the final solution for both Israelis and Palestinians. But at the same time, we're seeing that the Trump has been asking the Israeli government and its Middle East partners that they are going to facilitate the Palestinians who are in the occupied Gaza Strip. So do you think that Israel's neighbors, the Middle East neighbors, Arab neighbors, they're going to help facilitate the extermination of Palestinians? Because the Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all of them have said and condemned the Israeli actions. Do you think that they're going to facilitate the Palestinians from moving from their lands? I believe we have a technical issue, so let's take a look at this news report and we'll be right back.
We're trying to help out with a Biden-created monster, this whole thing that's happening with Russia and Ukraine. It's a horrible thing, and I'm not happy with President Putin at all. But this is something that would have never happened if I were president. This was a war that was never going to happen. And if I can stop a war, because I have an ability to do so, I'm disappointed, frankly, that President Putin hasn't stopped. I'm not happy about it either.
Mr. President, are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
Welcome back to the program. Hamid, we were having some technical difficulties. Now, for my last question, Hamid, I want to ask you about what has been happening in the United Kingdom. We saw the Glastonbury Festival. We saw how there were chants that to the IDF, the British public, the British media was not satisfied by what happened. People were criticized, rappers were criticized, entertainers were criticized. And then later on, the Palestine Action Group was also banned by British authorities. What do you make of the latest developments, Hamid?
I think it is very sad part from the British media, especially the way they have banned everything. It is against the right of freedom of speech. And I believe that, if whatever happened in Glastonbury was the voice of the people, and there should not be any way to stop them on the name of anti-Semitism. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It is all about a certain group who's doing a genocide of the people, of 2 million people of Gaza. And it was the people expression that they were chanting about the death to Israeli forces, IDF. And because the whole world have seen, the International Criminal Court have given the verdict against Netanyahu and IDF, and now the investigation is going on about the genocide. So it is all on, everybody can see, so there was nothing wrong. But sadly, I have been on another program and I was saying that BBC and other British media have lost their credibility in terms of impartiality. They are very biased, they are very partial. On top of it, I believe that the new legislation they are trying to bring from the British Parliament to stop the voices against Israel is discriminatory. They have all the people have all the right to give their expressions, and it is about the expression of public, that public is feeling the pain of people of Gaza. And that's why there was chants, there was slogans against Israel, and particularly against the IDF, who's responsible for all those killings, and thousands and thousands and thousands of killings. So as a human being, if we are feeling, the people of Britain are feeling the pain of people of Gaza, they should not be stopped. They should not be arrested. There should not be suspensions. There should not be bans. It is a right of freedom of speech. And in a democracy like Britain, who is the greatest advocate of freedom of speech, human rights, such things are not acceptable. Such things are, I believe that it is particularly showing their tilt, their favoritism, their partiality towards Israel and towards IDF and Netanyahu. And it is very bad. It will be written in the history as bad steps taken by the British government.
Dr. Hamid Khan Al-Mashriqi, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. It was a pleasure listening to your analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our program. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.